Hello and welcome back to 4FS Gaming. In this video we are going to have a look at how you can predict player movement across the map. This will allow you to move faster across areas where there is unlikely to be any players. It also allows you to set up ambushes, and it allows you to track and follow hunters to engage them when they are distracted and most vulnerable. So how do you make predictions about where other players are going to be? Well, we have to first start by looking at the spawns. Now if you're not familiar with these two maps here, you should get familiar pretty fast because they're really useful. They show different spawn locations where players can start the match. Many of these spawns are close together, especially in the corners, and ignoring the potential of enemies spawning close by will almost certainly get you killed quite a bit. For this example, we're going to look at a match in the Lawson Delta. I spawned south of Ironworks. Now given my knowledge of the other spawn locations, where might danger come from? There is a spawn to the south, but this one is much closer to Liberty Arsenal, and they're unlikely to come up into Ironworks straight away. It's still possible that they will rush towards my spawn, but very unlikely. Now my spawn to the north is more worrying. This location leads straight into the Ironworks. They could easily check my spawn before moving in. People generally do one of four things once they spawn. They will either run straight for the nearest clue, they might move up closer to the compound to see if anyone else is running for that clue, they might immediately rush into a nearby spawn, or they might stay AFK for a few moments, having gone to get a drink while loading or something else. So what I elect to do is move up towards the spawn north of me, listening for movement, and making sure that they have not crossed this bridge towards the Ironworks compound. Satisfied that no one has been past here, I then visually check the spawn location, because the last thing that I want to do is assume that it's empty, only to have an AFK player come up behind me in 30 seconds time. In this instance the spawn is clear. So what does this mean for me now? Well, it has only been a few seconds into the match, so I can safely assume that any other players that spawned one slot north or south of the spawns that I have checked are still going to be busy in their own compounds gathering clues and such. This gives me a minute or so in which I am 95% certain that there will be no players in or around the Ironworks compound. That means I can move in, melee zombies and stomp on glass without being heard and having my position revealed. Once I pick up the first clue, I can make some more decisions. This clue has blacked out the bottom right hand corner of the map. Remember that each clue blocks out the map exactly the same way for all players in the match. So I can assume that any players that spawned at Brickworks or Liberty Arsenal, once they have their first clue, will travel to either the Fort or Ironworks for their second clue, or Brickworks could go to Arsenal and Arsenal could go to Brickworks. But Fort is the most likely option, however, as it is a more central compound with two clues, so it attracts many players. Anyone who spawned at the Moore Battery could come down to Fort or Ironworks, or they could go up to the more northern compounds, and anyone further away than this is still too far for me to worry about at the moment. Because it seems like anyone from the south will pass through Fort, and a team from Moore Battery might also head there, I decide that Fort is a pretty risky compound to head to, especially as the only entrance from the west is a noisy and slow crank gate. So I decide to head north to Moore Battery, taking care that there may be a team pushing south across the delta at the same time. This is how you can use knowledge of clues and spawn points to accurately predict movement in the first phase of a match. Of course, the other real-time indicator of player position is noises that they make, and it is by combining our knowledge so far and noises such as gunshots, crows and horses that we can not only tell where a team is in the present, but where they are going. Just as I reach the Moore Battery, I hear a murder of crows taking flight towards the fort. By itself, this really doesn't tell me much other than that there are players over there. They could stay there if that's where the boss is, or then they could travel to Ironworks or Moore Battery, or depending on what the second clue told them, they could travel into the northeast. So I file away this information, I walk up and grab the second clue. This clue is both sealed and defended, which makes me feel a bit more relaxed. However, there is still a possibility that a team from the north is moving down this way. Notice that the further we get into the game, the less I am able to make accurate predictions. This is because the number of variables and possibilities for different player choices and outcomes increases exponentially with each passing minute. This clue, however, gives me a very important piece of information. By having Fort, along with all of the other southern compounds blocked out, I can make a reasonably assured guess that those players who triggered crows over at the fort will be heading right here to this clue, so I use this knowledge to set up an ambush. Sure enough, a few moments later, I can punish this team for setting off crows almost a whole 5 minutes. This is just one worked example, but it is this kind of prediction thinking that will allow you to read the flow of a game to cut off enemies, follow them, and know when it is okay to feel a bit more safe. But remember, you're never really safe. There are a couple of things that throw off the system, and the main one is players making noise. Many players enter the match itching for PvP, and if they hear sounds that indicate players, they will abandon any attempts to get at clues or the boss in a logical manner, and they'll just hunt for kills. This is a pretty good tactic, and I'm guilty of it myself most games, as it does reduce the number of enemies on the map before you reveal your position by starting the banishing. However, it means if you hear a lot of early gunfights or noise on your side of the map, predicting player movement based on clues becomes less reliable, as you have to factor in that there may be teams moving towards or away from the gunshots, even if it takes them in the opposite direction to the next logical clue compound. The other factor that makes predictions less reliable is time. The older your information is, the more irrelevant it is. Players can reposition and should reposition very quickly, especially if they've made noise. If you see a clue that has already been taken, then there might be players nearby, but if it's 10 minutes into the game and that clue is near the map edge, then it's just as likely that those players are long gone. The flip side to all this is that you need to realize when someone may be tracking your own movements. If I spawn, go for the first clue, but accidentally scare some birds, and then see that the map has blacked out all other compounds near to me except one, then my enemies in the area probably are guessing that I will be approaching that one obvious compound for the next clue from the direction of the noise I made. They can literally draw an imaginary line across the map that indicates where I will be at any given point. So I might go reposition to throw this off, go through another compound, or even come in from a completely different angle just to be unpredictable. Of course, you can also make a whole lot of noise and shoot off surrounds yourself to act as a little bit of bait, drawing in anyone from the surrounding areas. Just make sure you're in a good position to fight people off when they come knocking. Now hopefully this video will help you track and trap your targets, and feel safer off the spawn. Thank you so much for watching. This is Ascendance from 4FS Gaming.
Ah, there he is. Found him. Nice. I was using dark side, I couldn't see him.